Good morning, class. I hope all is going well with the sub. Happy Teen Read Week. I hope that you were able to have some time to dive into your choice books this morning. I also hope you have been reading those at home, of course. I wanted to switch gears now and go over the narrative. Um, we're going to look at the rubric quickly, then we're going to look at some engaging openers from literature. Then the sub will lead you through a quick activity and you'll have time to work on your final draft of your narrative. So let's speed through this pretty quickly here. First thing, I'm going to go backwards actually. First thing, I can demonstrate grade level mechanics and conventions. I've turned this into a formative target for this assignment. I don't feel like we've spent enough time going over punctuation and reviewing mechanics to count this as a summative grade for you. So I will give you a score, but this will not be a summative score for you. We'll go over the punctuation pattern sheet some more. We'll talk about run-on some more, but I didn't feel like I could leave the sub with a long grammar plan, and I definitely don't feel like I can leave you guys where we are now and still grade you summatively for that target. So anyways, we'll keep this one in italics and we will grade it as a formative. Writing process, you have been able to get feedback from 2 peers and myself, and I am expecting that you are considering that feedback and that you are revising your paper, that you are polishing it into a final draft, and that there will be evidence of changes when you turn in your final draft on Thursday. So when you turn in your final draft, I want a hard copy again, and I want you to be able and be prepared to staple your rough draft with the feedback on it to that hard copy. So make sure on Thursday you come with your rough draft that has all the feedback on it and a hard copy of your final draft. We will not have time to work on your final draft on Thursday. Again, we will not have time to work on your final draft on Thursday. You will have time today, and you have time over the next day to work on it, but no time in class on Thursday. So here's that writing process grade. The next target that we're looking at is demonstrating grade level sentence fluency and word choice. We did a sentence study with those New York Times reviews and that piece that was titled, "I'm just trying to keep everyone alive." Remember, we talked about how authors intentionally use long sentences and short sentences, sometimes exclusively long sentences or short sentences. Sometimes they juxtapose them, put them right next to each other, and they do that for effect. And we talked about the effect that those short and long sentences have on us, the readers. So I want you to try that. In fact, I want you to be able to look at your paper and circle, here's one long sentence I used with intention. Here is one short sentence I used with intention. And so make sure that you are able to do that. Excuse me. And then your word choice is precise and sophisticated. Make sure you're working on your word choice. You're pushing your vocabulary. You are engaging the senses. You are using that food words sheet that I gave you. You're looking at the restaurant reviews maybe for inspiration of how to write about food. But make sure that you are really considering if you are using the best words and how your diction conveys your meaning of your piece. And so now, going to your narrative piece, make sure that you develop a meaningful conclusion in your narrative. We talked about this briefly with the Carnitas article. Make sure you go back to kind of what the point of your story was, and it doesn't need to be anything life-changing, and it shouldn't be anything cliche like, I just want it to be honest. Even if it's just something where you've learned to acknowledge maybe something small, or maybe your story made you aware of something you hadn't been aware of before. But don't try and make something up that it changed your life unless it really did. But there should be some kind of resolution and meaningful conclusion to your narrative. I effectively use a variety of narrative techniques to move the story forward. We're looking right here. This would be the inner dialogue that we talked about last class. This would be imagery, of course, that we've talked about several times now in class. This would also be dialogue, and I wrote that on many of your papers, add dialogue or try and add dialogue. And I want to show you really quickly here If you go to Canvas and you go to the food module, so the food project module, I'm in modules right here. You scroll down, you should see this page right here, how to add dialogue to your narrative. If you click on that page, I've posted 2 videos just off of YouTube that show you how to write dialogue and how to improve your dialogue writing skills. This one is really the nuts and bolts. I think this one will be the most helpful. This one is just a TED Talk version, and it is definitely clever, but I think this one really will give you the basics much better of how to use dialogue. So if you have time today and you feel like you need this review, pop your earbuds in and watch this video. So adding dialogue, using imagery, focusing on the food, developing your characters, all of that moves your story forward, okay? And now, up to the top, I creatively draw the reader into the story. And we're gonna do a quick kind of fun exercise looking at how different authors creatively draw readers into the stories. And I have a few examples for you first. So some of literature's best opening lines, maybe this is just fun for me, but I'm going to read them to you really quickly, and then I promise you'll do a little activity on your own looking at opening lines, okay? So perhaps the most famous opening lines from any novel, maybe ever, and if you haven't read A Tale of Two Cities, these lines might still sound familiar to you. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And again, that's from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. So Dickens here sets us up with a long sentence. He sets us up with a paradox of this time, and he'll go forward to talk about how it could be all these things. Okay? Here we have a really short sentence. Ralph Ellison starts Invisible Man with just this simple sentence that is so powerful at the beginning, but then especially after you read the text and go on this journey with Ralph Ellison. He starts off simply by saying, I am an invisible man. The next one we have here, something that you will be reading next year, is the opening lines of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me and all the David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. So J.D. Salinger jumps right into it, and he introduces us to Holden Caulfield and in our narrator's voice. And so you have 3 different, very, very different approaches here, but all very engaging openers to some classic literature. A couple more examples. Pride and Prejudice, classic. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Famous opening line. Jane Austen throws this at the very beginning of her novel, and then spends the rest of her novel kind of going over how ludicrous this premise is. This is from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. Many years later, as he faced the firing squad, Colonel Aureliano Buendia was to remember that distant afternoon when his father took him to discover ice. Gabriel Garcia Marquez pulls the reader in here by flashing forward, right, many years later as he faced the firing squad, and then jumping into the story, his father took him to discover ice. And then finally, Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite novels, Slaughterhouse-Five, starts us off by introducing the unreliability of the narrator. All this happened, more or less. So we have a lot of different examples of best opening lines from literature, and now it's your turn. I want you to open up your choice novel once again. I want you to look at the opening lines of your choice novel and write them down on a piece of paper. You can write your name. You don't have to write the title of your novel. Just write your name and then the opening lines from your choice book. And the sub is going to take it from here. Thank you so much.